I'm Randy Gerber.
Christina Williamson.
And I'm Melanie Fisher.
And we're going to talk today about the law of one. So this is an interesting topic that some insights have come to me on, and then I'd like to hear from these gals too what their insights and thoughts are. So would you like me to start?
Go ahead and start.
Yeah, dive in.
Okay. So it was interesting. I had this topic came up because someone asked me in a channeling I was doing, what do I think about the law of one? And at that time I was kind of channeling kind of pure source consciousness, maybe you might say, and it was interesting answer that I wasn't really thinking about or expecting, but it made a lot of sense. And they said, this is one that so many in this New Age community misunderstand, because they say it's the law of one, not the law of two. And yet how many times we've said, are you the service to self or service to others? And they kind of put you in this category, and the service to others group are the bad group, and the service to self group are the bad group, and the service to others group are the good group. And it's like we kind of create this duality with it. And if it's duality, is it really the law of one? So I don't know, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, I think you're absolutely right. It's a law of two.
Yeah, it'd be the law of two, right? So,
yeah, and so I think we need to be reminded of how important it is to look at things in its entirety and to release judgments.
So what do you think? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I agree. You're setting it up by definition to be a duality.
Right.
And right.
So the way it showed me kind of in this vision I was having is it's like the law of one is kind of like raw consciousness encompasses both service to self and service to others, but they're both the same. They're all service to self. You literally can't serve others without serving self. It'll always bring joy, abundance, goodness to you when you serve others. When you serve your true authentic self with love, with compassion, with, even beauty and good food, and, it's also service to others, because how are you going to be living authentically you if you're giving everything to others and then you don't leave anything for self?
Right.
That doesn't make any sense.
A lot of my lessons were around being out of balance because I was giving so much to others. There was literally nothing left coming into myself, and so I was depleted, and I'm giving really from a place of, not being full. And so it's completely unselfish to take care of yourself. That said, of course, have a kind heart and be compassionate and give to others and care about others and include others, but you cannot negate yourself from that equation. And I think it gets a little bit misconstrued
you're bad if you're
judged.
Putting self first.
Right, it gets judged.
Which really, I feel like I have to put myself first.
Absolutely.
If I'm not first, then I'm only depleting and giving what I don't have, and I'm not keeping myself fulfilled, filled with my own love, my own joy, my own self-love, if you're trying to give it to others and just depleting it out of self.
Right. As an example, this topic and this intent to do this video came about from us being at a collective workshop down in Southern California, and Randy lives in Arizona, but we felt such an importance that she felt so drawn to come here to California to record this, and she's leaving behind 5 kids and a husband, but there was no question. It's not, I'm being unselfish. Her husband completely supports it. He understands. And so she's becoming so excited and fulfilled by doing this and following her inner guidance and really calling. And so when she goes back, she's so filled up, and she's including them in the trip and photos. And so everyone really is filled up from the experience, whereas it could be judged in life as, how can you leave on Father's Day weekend?
Yeah, it's Father's Day weekend right now.
Oh.
Yeah. And my husband's like, I don't celebrate corporate holidays that are just designed to get people to buy more crap from me I don't need. So he's all cool with it. But,
whatever.
Yeah. And to me, that's his service to me, to let me be. And that's also his service to self, because he knows that he'll also have his time to go do his things because I do. And there's nothing wrong with that. And I think we need to stop with this judgment, with this service to self or service to others. And if we're truly wanting to create a unity consciousness in this community, in this, I don't even like the term New Age community. I don't like the term Lightwork community. I prefer like an expanded consciousness awareness. And if we're really going to expand our consciousness, we have to realize that we're all one. There's no separation of others and self. You are me. We are each other. If I'm serving you, I'm serving me. If you're serving me, you're serving you. And if I'm serving me, I'm serving you. You know, it's like so people are totally misunderstanding from how I see it, this whole law of one, and the whole thing needs to be reconsidered. And I almost think it's like the universe is like cosmic joke. Like, let's see if they get this figured out, that it's called the law of one. And yet they keep dividing it into the law of two and creating duality with it and deciding which side is good and which side is bad. And that kind of defeats the whole purpose, and at least from my perspective, of what this whole law of one is really about. I don't know, what do you think, Melanie?
No, I agree. I just wasn't prepared for this topic. I know how to edit these things.
I know.
So
It's all
I'm like, okay,
She's
I
like,
forgot.
okay, let's
I
talk
listened
about
to
law of
part
one.
of the
It's okay.
audiobook about Law of One maybe like 2 years ago.
Yeah.
Well, that's
Exactly.
okay. Just
But I
in
know the
general.
concept.
Yeah, in general, it's like, it's the, it's
We
called
just
the law
fall
of one,
into the
and they
same
say,
traps, the same patterns over and over.
It's not minimizing an incredible body of work that will open up many people to incredible universal truths. However, it all needs to be looked at. And if somebody is having this awareness and thought, it can be expressed. And it may speak to the people that need to hear it to reconsider or to make it more approachable and accessible.
well, to read it with a new thought process.
Exactly.
Is this, if you start reading it from that perspective of the law, truly the law of one, instead of the law of two, it's like, well, if you're 51% service to others, then you qualify for ascension. We'll talk about ascension.
50.5.
You didn't make it. You were 50.5.
Wasn't good enough.
It's like, who's judging this, right? And who's deciding this? You're your own judge. There's
It's
nobody
just like,
judging you.
it
There's
shows
nobody
us like
deciding
how
if you're good enough
powerful
for
our patterns are, though.
Right.
It's like, I like to think, oh yeah, I've awakened and I'm aware and I see duality, but then you read something like that and you're pulled into it again, or like the angels and demons, you're like, oh, I'm gonna identify with angels or whatever, and it's like, again, we're just being reminded over and over, we're stuck in these patterns, we need to rise above it and observe them.
Totally, and I call them programs.
Yeah, I like
And
that.
I think that this is another example of a program is, really how is this any different than religion? It's like we want to say, oh, we're different, but it's like, no, if you start looking at it, it's no different than religion. It's about, are you good enough? Are you doing enough good to make the ascension? I can't tell you how many people are like,
Do you make
well,
the
am I
cut?
going to, do I make the cut? Am I
The
going to
grittiness.
ascend? And it's like, we'll talk about ascension and our thoughts on ascension in a bit anyways, but it's like, if we're asking those questions, what is the difference between this and duality, and this and religion, and this and all the other, in my opinion, BS out there? Are we really being all loving and accepting if we're literally putting a percentage, like, well, you didn't make the cut? It's like, no, we're all at a different expression of service to self and service to other at all times in every moment.
Right.
I think it is important, though, to acknowledge in the physical realm that there is a cause and effect relationship
Absolutely.
to the all that is. And so it doesn't absolve us from, like, being held accountable if we do
Right.
go into the dark side or service to
Right.
self, So I think it's really important to respect and honor the physical realm still, and how important that is to make sure you're in alignment with the whole cause and effect law.
Okay, so to understand that more, what you're saying, so not necessarily the duality of it, but just the actual, when you do something, there's going to be an effect of some sort. So if you're
Exactly.
hurting a person, purposely hurting a person, there's going to be a person that's hurt. And there's going, potentially karma wrapped around that. Is that kind of what you're saying?
Yeah, or doing nothing when you see evil or something that is actually a contraction, or something that is causing harm or negative cause and effect.
So by not saying anything, you're
Then-
saying then you're contributing to...
Then you're contributing to what causes harm, what will cause a lot of bad effects from that behavior. So I do feel like we're still accountable to align with that which will be the most harmonious.
So maybe
for-
where that
if we
that
want
thought
that.
is coming from, it's more like the intent than the actual action. So if like your intent is to love, to serve, to, let's say it's health and you're putting good food into your body and doing this, you might call that service to self because maybe you're spending more money on your food than other people are, right? But you're doing it to stay in this harmonious space within your own body. You could call that service to self, but that's also service to others. Whereas if you're like from a space of taking food from others and literally trying to make it so other people are starving so you can have more than you need, then that would be the kind of maybe what you're talking about? Is that what you're kind of thinking? Like,
I'm just seeing the trap of the New Age community a lot,
Right.
where they're like, oh, if we just try to, see duality for what it is and do nothing when you see like something that is very harmful happening.
so like avoiding the topic of seeing like the
Pedophilia,
the
truths
ritual
that-
abuse and things like
the
that.
stuff that's really going on that people don't want to talk about. They want to run away from it, or
that gives me low vibes,
la,
so I don't want to hear about it. Or
I understand everything's energy, everything's vibration, but that does not absolve us. I don't feel right about doing nothing.
It's an individual thing, because each it's a beautiful symphony, and one person's role may be like, you are super active and have a voice and speak out and post, and you're very active. My way is a little different, but I have many conversations, and I don't shy away from it. It's like, I think it's an individual thing that we step into what we're called to do. It's not that I don't care because I don't post in a certain way. It's just interesting. I think it's
like we all have our
kind of,
role.
Yeah, I think we each have our role, and just as it's important, you can you have the people that are on the stage and in front of the camera and doing that, but you have all the production people and the lighting people and the set people, and if those people went away, these people wouldn't shine. But it's a dance. It's a beautiful orchestration.
So it's kind of like playing the role that you feel is bringing the highest good to.
Step into your power, and that may change. Like, the person I am today is not the person I was 10 years ago. I was nowhere near as brave or outspoken or aware by any means. My focus and my shift on things has done almost a 180, almost to the point where I'm at a completely separate reality than many of the people that I know. And so it's just interesting. But I think each role, like I think, and the only person who really knows whether you're doing something is yourself. Like, I think if I didn't, anyway.
And probably the only thing that matters is yourself.
Yeah,
I mean,
I think
right?
I'm my only real judge.
Yeah, you're only
I'm really
real
the only judge that should
judge.
matter. My higher self and me, myself, God, my higher self, whatever you want to call it, universe, Almighty, whatever.
I mean, do we really believe in a God that says, well, good job, you made the cut, or you didn't. You were almost there, but remember this day?
Oh, you're 144,001.
If you wouldn't have bought that shirt for yourself, you would have made the service to others cut.
You're on the alternate list. Stick around. We'll let you know if there's a dropout. I mean, like,
Right.
it's kind of funny, but I think just knowing, that I'm really my own. I live up to my own awareness and standards.
Well, some thoughts that I've had on this too with the whole duality thing. It's like, okay, you might have this group, you say, okay, they're the evil group, they're doing bad things. And yes, we have to call that out. We have to say, this can't move forward.
Right.
I will not create a reality. I will not stay in a reality any longer that is abusing children, that is doing these things. It's just, I draw the line at that, and that's it.
Yeah.
But I also, I think looking at it from a higher perspective of understanding it, from that oneness perspective, we knew going in that there was going to be these extreme dualities. And we literally forgave all of ourselves permission to play these roles. And when you consider this service to others group that they're calling it, literally that was the role that they signed up for. Just like almost playing like the bad guy in a movie.
Service to self.
Service to self. Sorry, but we're calling them that. But really, they're just playing a role, right? And we don't even know if that's like another aspect of ourself, saying we're playing the duality. And this is kind of shown to me in a vision. With everything I say, see what resonates with you and consider the possibility of. So consider the possibility that when we came into duality, a part of us went to this extreme light and a part of us went to this extreme dark. And we played both sides to see ourselves from both sides so we could have decision and have choice. So in that, this service to self group, they're the greatest service that they've ever given us because they allowed us to experience duality, to learn more of ourselves, to learn who we are. And all the great teachers have said, what's the purpose of reality? What's the purpose of this duality experience? To gain wisdom, to know thyself, right? How do you truly know yourself if you never have to make decisions, if you never have to have choice between this side and this side?
If there's no contrast, you really can't
Yeah,
see.
if
If you
there's
were
no
born with a silver
contrast.
spoon in your mouth and everything was given to you and everything was perfect all the time, you would have no awareness of suffering or struggle or pushing through and going, oh, look what I did. Oh my God, I'm so strong. I can't believe I did that. And those are the greatest moments. I don't regret any moment in my life. I don't, I look at the people that at one point I was not so thrilled and happy about, but they're my greatest teachers.
Right.
And that's been...
So how do we bring
great...
this service to self, service to other groups into one harmonious oneness that is the law of one? What are your thoughts on that? How do we bring those together? How do we find, how are we able to reason or be reasonable with each other enough to find a space where we truly can all harmonize together, where we can become one? And we stop playing the duality game. If we're done with it, let's stop playing it. And if we're going to stop playing it, are we going to be the ones to say, we're still fighting these evil, we're still fighting? Are we going to say, all right, let's make peace? How can we find this space? Thoughts on that?
I think it comes back to what you said earlier, is just like know thyself and accept the all that is. And if the universe is really just sort of a self-licking ice cream cone, if we can acknowledge that and take it in its entirety, then there's honor and respect for the dark side and the service to self.
And I think, too, having compassion. Mm-hmm. I think compassion is that key of just saying...
Gratitude.
Gratitude, yeah. Gratitude and compassion for them playing that role. Mm-hmm. And saying, look, I don't want to play that role. I would rather play the good guy role
let's
any
be honest,
day.
In the scope of things, and if you believe that this is not the only existence, we've all played that role.
Right.
We've each played that role. We've been the bad guy. We've done all these things.
And we have it within us.
That we're accusing.
Do we all have the darkness? Yeah. If you haven't done your own, if you haven't had a dark night of the soul and experienced your own darkness and love and forgave and appreciated that about yourself, that's where you start to have compassion outside of self for others that are playing those roles to reflect back to you, where there is pain, where there is healing inside, where the need of healing inside, where there's all these things that we're not seeing until it's reflected back from us from our shadow side. And that's kind of how I started seeing the darkness out there. It's like, it's my own shadow reflecting back to me where there's healing within. So I have gratitude and compassion and say, look, let's just find a place where we can reason together. All is forgiven. I mean, I forgive you permission to play that role, but now let's play new game. And literally start putting that energy out there instead of the energy of we're still fighting, we're still against, we're still want to see punishment and judgment and, burn them or whatever it is, these extreme roles. And one thing that helped me, because I thought, how can I love these people? How can I have compassion for these people? The evil they do just makes me want to, literally sometimes cry or throw up or, these extremes. And I imagined it as my own child, and a child that was kidnapped and taken away from me and raised by someone that they were only abused, they were only hurt, they only suffered, they were taught all these things that this was normal. That child wouldn't know the difference. They wouldn't even know that they'd become evil because that's just all they knew.
They didn't have a choice.
They didn't have a choice. They weren't even really given choices. It's like, this is who you are and this is your role. And it's like, still, that's my child. And if I could ever have them back, I would love them just the same, and I would forgive them for all of it because I would know that's not who they are. Mm-hmm. And so seeing that in this darkness, I would say, this isn't who they are. This is a trap they've been stuck in. So how do we release them from that trap? We say, I will love you. I will forgive you. I will have compassion. Let's just work together and let's say no more of this hurt you're causing in the world.
Don't you think the universe gives pretty much all of us the opportunity to sort of balance out some of these energies? I mean, yeah, we may have been born with a really toxic program and we may be playing it out, but don't you think each soul at many times throughout their lives gets
they have a choice.
That moment of clarity of choice, and that's what free will is.
And I think we're coming up on that space right now for a lot of them.
Yeah.
And I think judgment is a universal law, and I think that's why we use the word surrender as we awaken so much, because we can surrender that there is this judgment force that seems to be working in a much bigger way than we can understand, and know that if we have felt harmed or there's been some serious imbalance, that feeling of revenge, that's a part of us that we might need to look at, and that maybe that's okay. Maybe that's a reflection of our desire to see justice and judgment kind of balance out. But again, if we surrender, it's kind of a beautiful thing that seems to take care of itself.
And I think you do have to express those emotions because there is a lot of pain there being the victim of that.
Yeah.
You know, and those children that are extreme victims of that need a way to express that. And that's where they have to have that same compassion. And, you know, if it's expressed in a negative way that we perceive as negative, but it's like that might be the only way to express it in order for their healing. And so I think any time we're bottling up any energies like that, it's going to come out eventually. It's going to explode out of us. And this is another thought that came to me, how we kind of created such an extreme duality, is we kept deciding this is good, this is bad, this is good, this is bad. We started making these categories, and we started saying, and you do this within you. It's like, oh, you don't want to look at your own negative. You don't want to look at anything bad. You just start burying it deeper in your body. Right. Well, it's like, you know,
that
it's
energy
true. Feelings buried
somewhere.
alive never die, right? It goes somewhere.
Right.
And that's kind of what we've done on a universal level. It's like, it kind of like all got shoved down to earth, and oh, all the evil is cast down into the earth and put in this cage. Is it going to stay there? No.
Change.
It obviously is reflecting back to us now in our own universe, all the things we tried to shove away and tried not to look at anymore. It wants to be looked at. It wants to be seen. And it wants to be understood. One thing that happened to me one night is I woke up and my room was just full of these dark, what felt like demonic entities. And my first response was to like shoo them away, cast the light, get rid of them. And they just came back again. And I'm like, what is going on here? And so I said, well, maybe instead of shooing away, I'll ask them, why are you here? What's your purpose? And just had a communication instead of assuming they were evil and bad and kicking them out. And they just basically said, we're just lost. We're energy that really doesn't have a place to go. We don't have a home. We don't know where we belong. All we know is that at some point we were labeled evil and bad. And so I said, well, how about will you join me in a space of love and see how that feels? And I just let them all come within me. And some people say, don't ever do that. Let the demons inside. But you know what? In that space of me loving them in instead of me saying, you're evil, you're bad, it just harmonized within me. And it's like I just found this perfect peace and harmony. And it's like they, for the first time, knew how to be loved. And it's like I felt like it was a very childish energy, like a child who had never really felt love, that was kind of abused their whole life. And then like a mother love that said, finally, you're lovable exactly how you are. I don't care that you've done these things. I don't care that you haven't experienced before. I just want you to feel what love is. Just see how it feels. And I just brought that energy in me. And I loved it. And it just harmonized. And so I think through our whole history we've looked at the duality and we've just labeled it as bad and we sage it out and we cast it out and we immediately, and I'm not saying that there's not a space for that, but because there probably is and there probably has been, but maybe moving into the new energy we open up a new space for all to be loved. And just maybe that's a possibility that we could consider, that's where we could go to the next level, and that will bring the harmony we're looking for back into our universe. I don't know. What are your thoughts on that? I know it's kind of a new thing. A lot of people aren't really ready to go there, but it's something to consider.
It requires just deprogramming quite a bit.
It does.
To get there. And it's amazing how easily we fall into the old patterns and programs. So I think talking about it is really important.
Well, it is. And you read things online and it's like, oh my gosh, they're still doing this. And you immediately want to be angry and hate. Yeah. And it's like, and I get that because I've been so angry to the point where the anger literally consumed me, to where I gave up hope for the world. Until I started to shift and started doing my own inner work and finding that love within myself and loving those dark spaces of myself, which that anger, that's what we cast out and say that's bad. But where did that come from? That came from a space of my love for others. You know, and so it's like,
you become what you despise.
Yeah, and so you just have to kind of realize we're all of those energies, and to cast any of them out as you're bad, you're evil, it's like, no, you have a place. And I've just started giving voice to those energies within me. If I feel angry, I'll like in my meditation, like, what are you angry about? Help me understand. And I'll listen to that and I'll validate it and say that is something to be angry about. And then I'll say, what if we consider a new possibility? And I'll just kind of talk through that. And I'll talk through that with the demonic entities. And it's amazing how willing that energy truly is, ready to consider a new possibility for itself too. Consider a possibility that it's still worth loving. Because we're told, when you tell an energy you're despised, you're evil, we're casting you out, you're going to hell, whatever verbiage that you're using, whether it's religious or new age or whatever, you're the dark, you're this, it's like, that's all it knows.
Yeah.
And it literally is like a childish energy that then it plays out that role because that's the role you gave it. So what if we start shifting that role? What if we start considering new possibilities of true law of one?
Absolutely. That's why when I feel like there's severe injustice, what I picture is just this big bright light. I mean, I'm not going to come in and like squish all the bugs, but I'm going to, hold up a light. And that feels like an honorable way to deal with imbalance. The light always seems to balance those things out. And sometimes, and especially in this day and age, the light of truth is considered an assault by many, but all it is truth, and
it lets
that's
us
how
see.
I deal with
it
that
lets
feeling.
us see what's really happening,
Yeah,
right?
let's
It's a
examine
light
it.
that lets us see. And just like we can't see in extreme darkness, we can't see in extreme light either. We have to have both. Right now it's like if we were looking right at the sun, it'd be too bright, but right here in the shade with a little bit of darkness and a little bit of light,
filtered
it's
light.
perfect, yeah. And so
But,
that's the gift that it offers, allows us all to see.
And I think things are moving so quickly and happening so quickly, and it's really time. It's really time to wake up and see and expose and
Might need to talk a little louder, I don't know if
yeah,
in
no.
case.
It's just time. It's just time to wake up, see, expose, speak truth, connect with those in truth, say no, say yes, but check in with yourself. Do what your inner guidance tells you to do. Don't give your power away to anyone. I've been in many paths with Eastern teachers, Catholic,
Trying to find that truth.
trying to find, but it's always within, and it always is within.
God is within.
Everything's within, and you don't need outside answers.
Right.
And
we have been taught to always seek something outside of ourselves for those answers. And this is where I did. And outside of myself said, you have to be good. You have to stay on this line. You have to do this and this and this, and then you're good enough.
Right.
Inside said something different. And that's where I'm kind of looking now, is at this new possibility of maybe there's a space for everyone. Maybe we truly are all one. If we can make space for a new possibility. And maybe to create a new timeline, we create a new possibility that we've never considered before, where humans and Cabal and all AI and all these different groups that are expressions of consciousness in some way can have a space where we can have harmony together. And this is where I want to talk about our next topic, ascension, and what our thoughts are on this whole ascension idea. Ascension's kind of the buzzword in the New Age light worker community.
Let's wrap up the law of one talk.
Okay.
Because the file will get too long.
Okay, good. All right. Okay, sorry.
Maybe.
How do we wrap this up?
Okay, the law of one.
Anyway, so the law of one is the law of one. It's not the law of two. So just start thinking about that from a new perspective and just see what insights come to you. And consider these possibilities that we just discussed, that it really is the law of one, not the law of two, and how you can find that oneness within you. And once you can love and have compassion for all the aspects of self, maybe you had a time in your life where it was pain and suffering and you came to a new space, and you have to find a space to love that part of self that did those things that you might be labeling as bad. But once you see it, you see that made me who I am. Without that, I wouldn't be me. Without this duality, we wouldn't be us. We wouldn't have had this experience. So it's like we can have gratitude for it instead of
Resistance.
resistance.